Good evening, good morning rather. You're watching FYI. I'm Rishika Barua. The big story that has dominated the headlines and really all our mind spaces has been vaccine development. The science that is what we're pinning our hopes on, that will now save the world. Well, as we all wait with bated breaths for a coronavirus vaccine, today on FYI, we'll try and answer some of the most basic fundamental questions on what is a vaccine. How is it made? What are the different types of vaccines? Are the coronavirus vaccines that have been developed in the last few months safe? What are the side effects? How do we read and understand this efficacy data that is being talked about? And of course, we'll also ask the million-dollar question on what are the realistic timelines for inoculation, especially here in India. So what is a vaccine? Now, a vaccine is something that trains the body's immune system to fight an infection. So it is designed to prevent a disease rather than cure it or treat it. So that's the concept of the science behind a vaccine. Now, how really is a vaccine developed? Well, there are three phases of trials that have been talked about. Phase 1 is tested in young, healthy adult volunteers. They're given, the vaccine is given actually to a very small number of volunteers. If it passes this test, it goes on to phase 2, where it is given to several hundred volunteers. There are multiple trials that take place across different gender groups and age groups to gauge if the vaccine is effective or not. If it passes this test, then it finally goes into phase 3, where it is given to thousands of volunteers across different countries. Different trials are taking place in different parts of the countries, which is what we're seeing happening with the COVID vaccines at this moment as well. And these trials, of course, are conducted to understand the efficacy of a vaccine across different areas. So, the other important aspect is the different types of vaccine, and this is something that a lot of us have many questions about. So, there is something called a live vaccine. A live vaccine contains a whole bacteria or virus which has been weakened, but it is inserted in your body to create an immune response. Then there are inactivated vaccines where they contain virus or bacteria which have been killed, or parts of a virus or vaccine are inserted into your body to elicit an immune response. For example, these are different types of vaccines, and the one that has really caught everybody's attention has been the messenger RNA vaccine, which is the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines that one has been talking about. They don't contain any weakened dead or non-infectious virus. They contain something called genetic information. So they pass on genetic information into your body, and it helps you to identify or block the coronavirus infection if it enters your body. It's a very interesting new technology. There aren't mRNA vaccines that are actually been used so far. So we will in fact open this up to a panel of experts and ask them what is the difference between these different vaccines. There's also the viral vector vaccine, which is the concept on which the Oxford vaccine is based. And that also is something that essentially tries to replicate what happens in an actual infection. Now, I'm not the expert here, so we will open this up to a panel of experts and try and understand what do these different vaccines mean for us here in India. Are these vaccines safe, most importantly? When will we get it? How long will it protect us for? I think these are questions that all of us really want answered at the moment. So we have with us Professor Dr. Anita Ramesh Chandra. She's a specialist in clinical trials. She's going to be joining us. We have Dr. Amlesh Seth. He's the HOD of neurology from AIIMS. And we also have Dr. Ashish Khattar, who's a senior consultant medicine department from the Venkateshwara Hospital. So thank you all very much for joining us. I think there are thousands of viewers who join me at the moment in asking some of the most basic and fundamental questions around vaccines. So we've all been given shots in the past, whether it's the most basic tetanus injections or the vaccines that were given, when we are much younger. But how many of us actually understand what these vaccines are, what they do, and how important really is the development of the coronavirus vaccine? So, Professor Anita Ramesh, if I can begin by asking you, I think the big question that's on everyone's mind is which of these coronavirus vaccines is going to be the safest? Because as we understand it currently, the different vaccines that are in different phases of development all over the world are all based on different kinds of technologies, and we've tried to sort of explain the difference in those technologies. But what's your sort of assessment on these different technologies and the safety?
Yes, a very pertinent question at this point of time. Yeah, see, these only 3 or 4 vaccines are in phase 3. That is the Pfizer, Moderna, Pfizer vaccine, Moderna vaccine, Oxford AstraZeneca, and the Russian Sputnik, and one more Russian vaccine. These are the 5 which are in the top phase 3, almost about to complete the trial, going into where the phase 3 is going on, seeing what is the efficacy and the dose, and any side effects are not there. Now, these vaccines are all made out of different modality. Now, if you see the Moderna vaccine, which is based on mRNA-based vaccine,
yes,
and if you see the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, it is made out of the virus vector, or adenovirus, or the chimpanzee virus. So I'll just tell you what is the difference between that. Okay, so is that this virus, it cannot be just like that injected into the body to produce the antibody. This virus has to go with something into the body. So the spike protein of the coronavirus, they have made into a viral vector in the chimpanzee, and they produce that spike protein, and that spike protein we are injecting into human beings.
Yes.
So that when the spike protein gets into the body, you will develop immunity, and when you are attacked by corona, this antibody inside your body can fight out the coronavirus, so the vaccine protects you. And that's how the Oxford AstraZeneca, or the one which is manufactured in India,
that's the viral vector phenomena.
That's the viral vector.
Yes.
Yeah, vector means you need somebody to carry it inside the body. That's why we add a vector.
Yes.
Now let's look into the mRNA, which is the Pfizer, BioNTech, Moderna. Is that mRNA is M stands for messenger. RNA is the ribonucleotide. So they are very small molecules, and they are little unstable molecules. And they have not molecules, they are particles, you can tell. And they are manufactured in the lab, and they are susceptible to temperature. Any change of temperature, even any agitation of that sort, will degrade the mRNA. So mRNA, again, they have specifically manufactured this small messenger RNA in the lab, which is like the spike protein. And when this small particle is injected into your body, this again initiates antibody reaction. So the problem with the mRNA, particularly in a country like India, where we spread from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, there is huge distance and lots of variation of temperature.
Right.
With the mRNA vaccine, what becomes a problem?
So temperature really, you're saying, is key.
Yeah, because see, the Moderna, Pfizer, and the BioNTech vaccine, they have to be kept either at -70 and the other at -20. That is the Moderna. So -20 and -70 is a big thing in India. How will you maintain the cold chain from west to east, north to south? So mRNA vaccine becomes a bit of an issue as far as dispensing is concerned. Whereas if the viral vector vaccine, which is the Oxford AstraZeneca and the Serum Institute manufactured vaccine in India, they are much more stable. They can be stored at 2 to 8 degrees centigrade. You can just keep it in the fridge door only. You don't need refrigeration. And that falls a very viable option as far as this country is concerned. So we'll be able to give it to many of the people. And that's one key difference. And one more thing I want to tell you is also that we are also looking, the world is looking into several vaccines to act in different modes. We do not know how the virus will behave, and we do not know how much of protection. So yes, mRNA vaccine is equally important, as well as the viral vaccine, which is more favorable and it's cheaper also.
Right, of course, the cost factor is extremely important.
Much cheaper.
It will be much cheaper. The mRNA vaccine, also because of its logistical concerns, and like Dr. Anita just explained to us that the temperature is key. So if it needs -50 degrees or -70 degrees refrigeration, for instance, or freezer temperatures, for instance, and any variation can actually also reduce the efficacy. But Dr. Seth, if I can bring you in here. Given the fact that efficacy data has been released in the last fortnight, and that sort of, dominated the headlines, what does this efficacy data mean for us, the common person? I mean, should we only choose to inoculate ourselves with a vaccine that has above 90% efficacy? Is 62% efficacy, say, of the Oxford vaccine here in India good enough? How do we read this efficacy data? How does a common man read and understand this efficacy data?
efficacy that is being studied right now is mainly in the form of the generation of antibodies and the antibody response that is being assessed, and to some extent the so-called T cell or the cellular immune response is also being checked. So this is, to some extent, you can say a laboratory data, but in terms of efficacy in preventing the disease, that data still needs to come.
Okay.
Although this is a surrogate marker for clinical efficacy, which means this is a marker for likely prevention of clinical disease also.
Right.
So the better the efficacy, the better is the vaccine.
Okay.
So if an efficacy of 90 or 94% is there, then it is definitely a better vaccine compared to a vaccine which has an efficacy of say 60% or 70%.
So interesting. What you're essentially saying is that for a layperson to read this efficacy data, it is, if a vaccine has 60% efficacy, essentially means that there is 60% chance that it can prevent you from contracting COVID-19. But the question then, Dr. Khattar, that a lot of our viewers have also asked is, how long will the effect of the vaccine last? We understand that the main vaccines in question right now, whether it is Oxford, Moderna, Pfizer or the Sputnik vaccine, for instance, need 2 doses. But what we don't know is how often will we have to get these 2 doses? Is there any clarity on that?
Good morning, everyone. Now, thing is this, as we have already discussed, the vaccine, the subunit vaccine, the mRNA vaccine. Now, every vaccine has a role to play.
Live vaccine will give immunity a little longer. The inactivated vaccines are a little lighter. The virus has been inactivated, and the immunity given is shorter, and you need boosters time and again. Then again are the viral vector vaccines, and this is the first time when the mRNA vaccines are being rolled out by Moderna and this one. So now, thing is, as we already said, that which we know the things by now, that 2 doses, maybe 3 weeks or 4 weeks apart, are currently required to boost up the immunity. The time will gradually tell, even though the phase 3 trials have been shortened a lot and we have squeezed to 1 year of the total time duration rather than the supposedly what was supposed to be 5 to 10 years for a vaccine creation. So currently, with whatever trials have come up, we have thought of, and we have come out with this thing that averagely we need currently 2 doses to boost the immune system. Right, so the first dose landing up with some immunity, and then again in immunological phenomena by giving the second dose at the end of 3 weeks or 4 weeks, leading to a rush of immunity again, the memory B cells formation, and then leading to a good amount of immunity. Now, this is again a thought that whether we are actually going to need it by again 1 more year, right, by the end of 1 more year, or you need it every year, it is, the time is going to tell. But definitely do remember that it's an mRNA, it's an RNA virus, and mutation till now hasn't been found out anything majorly.
Yes.
But gradually you may need another strain or another vaccine yearly, like the influenza vaccine which we are already having. So if you see, the time is going to definitely tell when it is in the post-market surveillance and the post-market survey and the phase 3 is over and things, then we are going to gradually know that whether we need 2 doses or it's a yearly dose or we need.
Right. Dr. Anita, if we essentially understand that correctly, what Dr. Khattar is saying is that it's not yet known, or it's too early to ascertain whether just 2 doses of these vaccines will give long-lasting immunity. What is long-lasting immunity in this particular case? You know, is it a year? Is it 2 years, 3 years? How soon will we know how long immunity lasts once you've been given the vaccine?
Yeah, okay. Again, a very important question at this point of time. We know that the vaccine trials previously took several years to come to the clinic, but we are rushing into this coronavirus because it's a pandemic and we need it immediately. Now, we are not aware of the long-term results of these vaccines. They are only short-term, telling into the efficacy, which means that if I have given the dose to 100 normal individuals in the country, out of which 95 of them will not get the coronavirus, whereas 5 will get the coronavirus, and if also they will get it in a lighter form. That is what the definition of efficacy 90% means.
Right.
So we just know the efficacy, but we do not know how long this efficacy is going to last, because we don't have the time to see for it. We are rushing into to get something. And this, you have to wait to get an answer to this question to see whether those patients who got vaccinated, did at all they get the coronavirus infection or they never got it. And we also need to measure the antibody titer in their body to tell how long the antibody produced is staying to give them protection.
You know, which is the other
yet to come.
Yeah, which is the other important question. Dr. Seth, if you'd like to come in here, you know, will the coronavirus vaccine actually prevent COVID-19 or will it only reduce the chance of a severe infection? This is another question that a viewers actually asked. Do we have these answers just yet?
Okay, before I answer this question regarding the duration of immunity, there are some studies that have been done on patients who have had the corona infection, and it has been estimated that the immunity lasts for about 9 to 10 months. And as has been pointed out by Dr. Khattar, based on our experience with the influenza vaccine, the immunity again lasts for a similar period. It is not a lifelong immunity. So that is the time frame that we have to keep in mind when we are understanding the utility of the vaccine time-wise.
So at this moment then, Dr. Seth, would you say it's safe to say that this is a vaccine that people will have to get every year perhaps, or get 2 shots every year?
Based on the influenza vaccine and coronaviruses, although they are from a different group, but yes, their clinical behavior is similar to the influenza group.
Right.
So yes, that is what the likelihood is, but only time will tell. That is what is the, you can say, the studied estimate right now. That is, yes, that is what I would say. Now, the second question, what was the other question?
The question was whether the vaccine will prevent coronavirus or only prevent an individual from getting a severe infection.
Yes, there are both these theories that are right now that are being studied, and both these are perhaps correct. And perhaps the vaccine is not only reducing the chance of a person having the infection, but there are also some patients, some volunteers who have had corona despite the vaccine, and in them it has been found that this is the data that has come from the Oxford study, the Covishield. And what the entire data is still not in public domain.
Right.
It has been submitted to the authorities, and the authorities will examine it carefully. But yes, this is also being shown that there are some volunteers who have developed the disease, which has been very mild.
Okay. So you're saying essentially, you're essentially saying that, right, you're essentially saying that a vaccine can either prevent you from getting an infection altogether, or it can merely just prevent you from getting a very severe infection or something. It can prevent something that can be life-threatening. That's very interesting, Dr. Khattar. The other question that a lot of our viewers have actually asked is, will recovered patients, therefore, who presumably have antibodies or T-cell immunity against the coronavirus, at least for a few months, will they also need to get the COVID-19 vaccine?
Ma'am, that's a very correct question. Now, thing is this, as we know that the immunity or the antibodies, what has been seen, commonly lasts from 3 months to almost 9 months. As this are also said that the coronavirus vaccine, the antibodies have been seen from 8 to 9 months in patients, but it has been also found out that the antibodies starts washing off maybe at the end of 3 months or 4 months. Then definitely, yes, then the patients, those who have already suffered from coronavirus disease, will need vaccine over a period of time. So that is for sure that they are definitely going to need a vaccine.
All right. So you're saying that irrespective of whether you've contracted the infection or not, you're still going to need to get the coronavirus vaccine as and when it's out. And before we go into timelines, I think the other big question that's on everyone's mind, given the kind of news and information that one has seen, is what are the potential side effects? Are there any potential worrying side effects, of a vaccine that's been developed in a few months vis-a-vis previous vaccines that we've seen that have been developed over years? Dr. Anita, would you like to take that on?
Yes, yeah, very important. Like how we do in the cancer drugs, we do need to see whether they have developed side effects. That is in the phase 3 we see. Plus, we do a phase 4 study, which is called the post-marketing surveillance, where even after the drug is marketed, they may have side effects. And so that what happens in the drug development and in the previous vaccine development. But remember, we are in a different situation now. Yes, we are in a hurry to save the mankind. So that's why we are not very sure what are the side effects, but vaccine related side effects like little bit of chills, little mild fever, some malaise can be there, pain at the injection site. These are common, will be happening and is also happening. No major side effects has been reported except in the Oxford AstraZeneca study was stopped in UK when one of the volunteers had some neurological problem and the trial committee looked into that and said that okay, the vaccine trial can be restarted. A similar incident had happened in Chennai itself, where the vaccine was given on 1st of October.
Yes, and I think all of that is being covered, in the news very greatly. So I don't want to focus on those particular instances here on FIR. But Dr. Seth, anything that is life-threatening about getting yourself inoculated, especially, and I ask this question especially for an older population or those with comorbidities who are at higher risk of getting the coronavirus. What is the risk factor for that section of the population to get the vaccine? What are the risks associated with it?
Whatever the data has come up so far, it seems extremely unlikely. But at the same time, one cannot totally put this issue under the carpet, and surveillance has to continue. And what is known as a phase 4 surveillance or a phase 4 study, once the vaccine is introduced, then we have to be careful regarding occasional adverse events may occur, which may be serious, but whatever data is coming so far, almost in the Oxford vaccine or the AstraZeneca vaccine, almost 75% of the volunteers have had mild fever, muscle ache, fatigue lasting for a day or two, but no serious adverse effects.
No serious adverse effects. I think that's very important for those viewers who have apprehensions about the vaccine and whether you should get it, whether you should, especially those with comorbidities or older sections of the population. Well, no major adverse effects of any of these vaccines so far has been known. The million-dollar question that I'd like to end with then, Dr. Khattar, perhaps if you'd like to come in there, timeline for vaccine dissemination, vaccine delivery pan-India, what would you say is a realistic timeline?
It may land up with, I think, the year and next year. Maybe it may take up to 6 months to 12 months.
Right.
We kindly understand the whole process is vaccine generation, then it is the distribution, then it is the prioritization, that who needs the vaccine actually first.
Yes.
Right, your older age group, the already pre-morbid illness, then your healthcare workers, and then your general population. This was also a lot in news that actually that everyone may not need the vaccine to control the disease. To create a herd immunity, you need at least 70% of the general population to be vaccinated. Again, your children below 15 years, we have witnessed that the disease severity hasn't been there much in them. So we can hold there, and what we need is prioritization of our vaccine giving. So I think by March, if we can start, we can end up with year end next year.
All right. Dr. Anita, would you agree? Is early 2021 by March, say if the vaccine's out in the market, another 1 year for the entire country or at least 70% of our population to be inoculated? Would you agree with those timelines?
Yes, I absolutely agree, and that's how it is going. Maybe in the Western countries, the vaccine will be available end of this year. That's what Pfizer, Moderna, and BioNTech is telling. But as far as India is concerned, I am keeping a timeline between February and June 2021, where we'll be able to give the first-line health workers, which includes everybody, nurses, doctors, housekeeping. Second is to give the cancer patients, cardiovascular, pulmonary, dialysis, transplant patient. Thirdly, elderly patient. All these are 3 priorities which has to be addressed before we go. I think by middle of June, we should be able to give the real targeted, and rest of the population can have it after June onwards, and also children.
Well,
by end of next year,
that's definitely good news. That's definitely good news. It doesn't seem all that far away. suddenly. But thank you very much, doctors, for sparing the time of day and answering our questions so very patiently. There are several questions about vaccines that still continue to remain unanswered. We'll try and focus more on the issue of vaccine safety, efficacy. What does this mean for you here on FII? I'm afraid that's all we have time for today. Thanks for watching.